All righty, welcome everyone. It's a bit of an impromptu gathering on our part. Eduardo is a busy man. He's traveling and has got a lot to do, and I just wanted to make sure to grab him once this week so we could have a conversation. So we bumped up our talk to Wednesday. Unfortunately, Nick is somewhere in Montana hiking today, so he couldn't be here, but we'll all be back together maybe next week. Maybe we're all busy. Who knows? But I wanted to get together. There's been a lot that's been going on in obviously between the U.S. and Brazil. A lot in Brazil as we've seen harvest pace of safrinha corn, start to pick up a little bit. And just overall, I always have questions that I want to ask Eduardo. So this is mostly just for me, I swear. But let's get going. First things first, Eduardo, give us just an update. What is happening with harvest progress? What are you seeing with farmer movement? What is happening down that way? Let's start with corn. Just an overall update of the situation, and then we'll move to beans.
Okay. Angie and Carol, nice to see you again. I shut my video because the connection here is it's not so good.
Yes, it's totally
Uh,
fine.
yeah. So in Brazil, we had a very good week. The last week was good for safrinha harvest. It was about 15 percent points, which is pretty normal for this time of the year. So and we have some rains forecast for this weekend in the south of Brazil, but then next week will be very clear again. So firm weather, and then the expectation is this: we are going to pick up the harvest in the south of Brazil, mainly Paraná, and overall we'll continue to see 15, 20% points in progress of harvest. The result is pressure, lack of space, and freights are increasing. Now it seems the freight peaked because it was very expensive, mainly in Mato Grosso, higher than the soybean season. So, but the message is Brazil has a lot of corn coming, lack of space, and the ratio between corn and soybean makes us to believe farmers should sell more soybean because it's better than corn. And we see a small short squeeze in corn, like we have seen in the start of the harvest season of the soybean in Brazil, the same pattern.
So do you see farmer selling increase on the corn side? Like, I know you said that soybeans are a better, make more sense to sell. Is the farmer's hand forced at any point? That's the thing I'm watching right now is a lot of the conversation is Brazil has a huge corn crop. They're going to overwhelm the world market here with this corn very soon. Do you believe that? Do you think it makes its way to the export channels and gets sold cheaper? Is that what happens here in the short term, or is the farmer forced to sell soybeans to make space for corn? And the corn program, do you see the corn program getting its feet underneath it? I guess is my big question in that.
No, actually, we saw some pressure a month ago because many farmers want uh, to move corn for June, July, but then we have no this window. It's completed, so it's shut.
Yeah.
Any other farmers that want to move corn and then for export, for example, it should be August and September.
Okay.
So they didn't have a pressure to sell right now. Uh, if you think about the window. They are selling because other reasons, for example, price. And then we have seen a uptick in terms of flat price in Brazil, 2 3 real per bag, something like 10 15 cents per bushel because of the FX, but because of the exporters, they have a coming nominations to export, and they don't have enough corn to move. Then it's they are selling because of the opportunities. In August, it is a very important month, like April, because they need to pay some bills or sell more to purchase more inputs for the next soybean crop. So August, we should see something in terms of farmers selling pickup or soybean. I think we are going to see both, but the answer is the pressure is not here anymore.
Okay. So space wise, what does the grower do as we see harvest continue? Like where do you guys where are they going to put the corn?
Always Silas bag.
I mean, I feel like that's the I to me, I see that as, you put it away, you have a slower harvest start. It's allowed, basically the market to absorb the first 40% of the crop to a certain extent. Like are you just able to hide the rest away then in the short term, do you think until prices improve?
Oh yes, yes. The price improved because we have this kind of, now producers are not so eager to sell, and we have ethanol plants. They are buying, keep buying in the spot and for deferred deliver. And the other buyers, they need to cover, for example, September. So it's very short. When you think about the feed demand, cattle and poultry and hog industries, they are very short because producers didn't give the chance to extend the coverage. So again, farmers are not in a position to be pressured to sell big chunks of corn. Then again, market overall are very surprised in
Yeah.
terms of the replacement cost, which is very expensive.
So last question, and then we'll stop beating this dead horse, but it's just so intriguing to me right now because one of the arguments I've been saying for a while is balance sheets are one thing, grain flow is another. And so with Brazil and a large crop and a 40 million metric ton, projection from an export standpoint, like you still feel we meet the 40 million metric ton target, 45? I mean, what are your thoughts on the corn export book overall?
Yeah, we have to leave every quarter. For this quarter, July, August, and September, it's definitely very below the expectation from the export standpoint, and then exporters in Brazil, they are rolling positions for OND. Because of that, they see they are squeezed in terms of I need to buy. Farmers are not selling, or the domestic demand is larger than we expected, and the harvest progress, it's
Well,
been very slow. But the point is, for July, August, and September, it should be at the below of the expectations.
mm,
That should be the range. It was 5 million tons,
mhm.
17 up to 22 million tons. But now I say maybe 17, 18 million tons. That's the point. Then the OND, it's another story. Of course, we if we take a look to the spreadsheet and the balance sheet, then Brazil should pick up in terms of export, but depends on the flat price.
Yeah.
At this level of flat price in Brazil, keeping everything stable at the same, for example, FX and CBT and basis, then I believe producers will not sell the amount that we expected to see more than 40 million tons. 40 million tons, I think it's still possible.
It's still possible. So
Yeah.
what's important to point out to the audience that's kind of listening in that may not, be chronically connected or maybe obsessed a little bit with grain flows out of Brazil and some of these other things like I am because I have a problem and probably need help. But the thing that is most interesting in this regard right now with what Eduardo is saying is that in 2023, Brazil had a similar export program size, 40 plus million metric ton. But and correct me if I'm wrong, Eduardo, but in 23, all of it went out between July and December. You didn't have a slow pace. You basically had Brazil fire selling, you know, 5 to 10 million metric ton of corn, if not more, a month into the world market. And it basically just robbed US demand the first half of 2024, export demand. We weren't competitive. Brazil had sold into the market. A lot of folks were anticipating a similar process to happen. Basically, that we would see a huge amount of farmer selling come in. We'd have a lot of corn come into the pipeline. Brazil would sell it into the world market well below US values, and you would see the same sort of thing happening. If we see 4 to 6 million metric ton a month of worth of shipments instead, it's a different ball game, correct? Am I correct in that, Eduardo? Or I mean, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but the book size is similar to 23, but the execution will not be the same.
Yes, that's correct. But we have two drivers.
Yeah,
For example, in 23 and 24, we had two different things comparing to this year. One is the take or pays. For those who are not familiar with Brazil, we had three main corridors for export, and those main corridors, two of them depends on the rail. So you go there and you take the space and you have to, and you can't in Brazil different from the US. You can't trade that. If you want to use the take your pen, then you sell to someone else. But in Brazil, it's not possible because we have income tax if you make money. So it's different. The point is, in 23 and 24, the exporters they were more confident in terms of export flow. Then they hired a big position in terms of logistics, and they have to move the corn or soybean independent on the if they were making money or losing money. In the last in 23 they made a lot of money because of China. China moved a third of our export program, something like 15, 17 million tons. So this year and the last year, China is not here to move corn and move up the basis. Um, just to have idea, only two cargoes in the name of China since
yeah,
the whole season. So
yeah,
it's very small. So and the message is this: China is not there to buy Brazilian corn.
yeah.
Then for this year is different because we didn't have China and exporters. They didn't made the same mistake of the last few years. The take or pay overall it's very small in terms of commitments. Then exporters they don't need to lose money. And now if they are losing money, if they buy corn and sell back to back, they lose 60, 40 cents per bushel. Depends on the region. Yeah,
Yeah.
big money.
And you aren't going to get that from the farmer at this point, right? The farmer is not going to take that hit. They're not pressured to sell. They're not the ones that have to take that loss at this point. Like,
Yes, yes, and the domestic market is paying, and the short squeeze for the exporters are they have to participate at least to complete the commitments they have for August and September. So everybody is buying at the current the replacement cost, which is a very is much higher than the default levels, and much higher than the, for example, Asian beads. For example, last week, we had the Vietnam corn
Mhm.
tender, and the bead was much lower than the best offer, $7-8 per ton, and the best offer, uh, if they do back to back, and they would lose 60 cents per bushel. So the that's the scenario you have. This year we have 40 million tons of corn in terms of balance sheet or expectation for the export program. But the point is exporters are losing money, and this year we didn't have the same commitment to the logistics that we had in the last 2 years.
They don't have to lose money on additional
Yeah.
bushels. They just have to lose
Yes.
the ones
Yes.
they have. And so that's so I appreciate being able to talk to someone who is on the cash side of things because it cash is king in the end, first off. But secondly, it's super important to recognize, again, like we said, like balance sheet is one thing, grain flow is another. Now, let's talk about soybeans a little bit because, I feel like corn with the slower export pace out of Brazil, that could be supportive to US values in the short term as we move ahead. My biggest worry obviously is that something changes, corn becomes profitable to sell, and the Brazil farmer does end up pushing a bunch of supply into the market. Soybeans are kind of experiencing that at this point, right? You posted this morning about high stocks in China, and some of these other things. What are your thoughts on soybean demand going forward? Does Brazil capture business if the farmer sells more, or do you think the US, kind of continues or should dominate non-China business? What are your thoughts on how the bean market setup looks here over the next month or so?
Yes, it's a very seasonal at this part of the year. For example, last year we had the soybean stocks in the Chinese ports hit 9 million tons. It was the highest ever. Then this year it seems more. It's earlier this year, so I think we hit the peak the last week. It was 8.3 million tons, and the the comments are the same. Oh, we have a lot of beans. Our crush is the rate is uh, close to 70%, and because of that, we don't need to buy more beans. So it's the same. But the point is, the concentration of purchases are here in Brazil, and the 10% of tariffs over the U.S. soybean will keep a very interrogation point. The question is how China crushers will cover O&D plus January demand. That's the point. Because up to now, cover August and September, it was not so difficult because Brazil has a larger crop, and Argentina sold 8 million tons around that. So they need to execute. It's another story, but they sold around that. So it was not difficult. And what it was profitable because of the Argentina. So
Yeah.
the blend between Brazil and Argentina, and because of the discount of Argentina beans, which is not there anymore, it was 40 cents up to 60 cents compared to Brazil. So the crushing margin was good, but now it's not good for anyone. For Chinese, they are losing money.
Yeah.
For exporters, tradings in Brazil, it's not good anymore because the curve of the curve is flat. It's a very specific pattern that we have seen in the last many years. Because every month, for example, from Feb up to July, then we have in the CFR curve flat price, we have 30 cents carry because, and then it make you you can originate from Brazil, for example, for March and ship during April, and then you make 30 cents. So it's very profitable
Yeah.
for both for Chinese and for tradings in Brazil. But now OND curve, it's going to be flat.
Yeah.
Then party is over. So that yeah. So the big question is that how Chinese crushers will cover that.
Mhm.
I still imagine, and I still expect part of that they will need to cover in the West.
Do you think because the government, China's government has said that they've made exemptions, they've done, loopholes for certain things. And so I feel like if there is pressure from the crusher that you could see them, provide some import tariff or, tariff-free imports or like we've talked about before, the government buys and you see more in the way of auctions, which feels to be the MO at this point for China, like looking at corn auctions. As soon as the domestic market heated up and the import margin was there, instead of allowing the private market to work, China dumped reserves and cooled everything. So I think there may be a way that they're kind of trying to transition to that. Maybe they don't want private crushers to buy as much from the US. Maybe they want the government entity to do the US purchasing and then they can hand. So it'll be interesting to watch. I am not in the camp. I am not of the belief that China does not buy from the US. I think China still comes in and purchases not maybe not as much as a year ago because they don't have to. With like you said, the Argentina beans and more in the Brazil supply, but I don't think they skunk us. I don't think they just walk away from us entirely. And we did have rumors yesterday that they were inquiring on freight, right? From the Gulf into to
Yeah.
China. So we'll see. All right, we're almost up to our half hour, so we've got to talk about the elephant in the room. And that is our current, I'll call it a trade embargo for lack of a better term. 50% tariff rates
Wow.
are spicy. What are your thoughts on that? Tell us a bit, what is the reaction in Brazil? How do you think your government responds? And what do you think that means for trade? Carl's got a question for you on beef to follow up, but let's just start with give me your opinion on our fun trade thing.
Yeah. This is the only tariff which is not a trade uh, from trade perspective.
It's an
It
important
is
point, right? It's
yeah, it's
more
a
politically
political.
influenced.
So
Yeah,
how to negotiate that?
yeah.
And and I think the Brazilian government is not taking the right way. They said we're going to take this matter to the WTO. So I can't see that process will be fast enough to avoid 50% or something. So
Yeah.
the clock is ticking, and then I see Brazil losing part of the beef demand, coffee, orange juice. I'm not familiar of the volumes, but we export those kind of things to the US and the more manufactured things. So big companies they are going to lose money. So the pressure will be big over the government um, to try to figure out how to defuse this bomb. I
Mhm.
don't know. So it's a
For
big
lack
question.
of, yeah.
So let's see. I hope Brazil, this government, and the Congress position is very important because government needs the congressman to approve some kind of more taxes or other thing to balance the government finance up to the end of the year and for the next year. So they need so depends on the congressman, in my opinion. And if you see the comments and the position here in Brazil of the government is not good because they want you to take this matter to WTO, and that could be take 1 2 years. Don't know. It's
Yeah.
very slow
Trump
process.
will be out of office by the time we get the determination, honestly. Like the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
so currency wise, right? Initially currency weakened quickly, but has since kind of stagnated. That to me,
yeah.
that's my biggest what I'm watching the most closely because if it weakens, then it changes potentially changes farmer flow. But what are you seeing from currency? And then we'll go, Carl. I know he's got such a good beef question, so I want to make sure he gets to ask. But currency, what do you think we see the currency impacted, or does it just kind of sit and tread water until we know more? Do you think it hurts the economy overall?
We received a lot of big flow during the first half.
Yeah,
So, but market seems doesn't believe of this tariff,
yeah,
50% will be applied. But if we assume 50% from August onward, and then we are going to see a big outflow.
that makes sense.
uh, then that's going to be a very big problem for Brazil because it's going to bring again the inflation for the rest of the year and the next year,
Hmm.
uh, and other things. For example, the tax, the financial position of the government. So it could be a mess. For now, from now on, government assumes it's not going to be for real. So it's very flat, but it's far from the bottom,
Yeah,
but it's very flat. And the market overall, the sentiment is this: no, no,
it's just gonna
Trump.
stop. It's
It's just a kind of another Trump thing.
an escalation to a de-escalation. Carl, go ahead. I don't want to because I know it's important what you're running.
Um,
Hey, Carl, just remember, I'm Soybean guy, okay?
no,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
That's
but
how I am whenever anyone asks me. I'm like, I'm a
I,
consumer. I'm not a.
yeah.
I get it, but you'll follow my numbers, Eduardo.
Okay, okay,
I feel the 50% tariff goes away rather quickly.
okay,
Um, maybe before I possibly weeks, is my opinion. Here's why. Um, beef trade is the big one. The United States imports annually about 230,000 tons of Brazilian beef. That's about 8% of Brazil's exports. That's 22% of US beef consumption, though.
wow,
So you've taken
And it's
one,
ground beef, right? We love our hamburgers.
that's, here's the thing. 70% of the beef we import from Brazil is trimmings for hamburger. We have our inflation in the United States. We've started to ratchet up a little bit here over the last few months. In high inflation times, hamburger ground beef is the consumer demand. And
okay,
all of a sudden you have a US consumer that you've just
You're paying
for what
$13 a pound
the
for
thing
the.
is that you can't even say that the price of the beef went up 50% because that 50% there's no trade. You just lose that beef. So now you have a consumer that, and politics will fall into this. You promised a US consumer lower prices for their food, and you're going to take a measure that's going to affect 22% of the US beef supply. The fallout from that, or the potential fallout, in my opinion, it might not halt the 50% tariff, but I think we see some big adjustments on what the 50% tariffs are put on. That's my opinion. I don't, maybe you don't agree with me, Eduardo, but the US consumer, um, and I'm one of them. I mean, we're fat and lazy. We want to eat, and we want to eat beef, and we want cheap beef. And if we can't get it, we get pissed. There's
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Yeah. So I mean that to that, that's why I feel this probably cures itself a little faster sooner than I don't think it fully makes it to the WTO the way it is. I just curious what your thoughts are, Eduardo.
Oh yes, I think I got your point. Yeah, that's a very important, and the JBS, it's the main driver. So in Brazil, our clients here, which is they are soybean growers, but they are also cattle. So the comments, overall comments, are JPS and another big ones that follows JBS every day. They are out of the market because they don't know what is going to happen from August onward. So it's not difficult to see, for example, if the 50% comes in for real, it's not difficult to see JPS taking the market down in Brazil. So pay attention to the beef futures in B3, put in your screen, and then you're going to see a very good indicator about this trade war between Brazil and the US. Because JBS controls more than 50% easily of the Brazil chain. So if they want to make producers pay this 50%, it's not difficult because in the last 2 years the beef rallied more than almost 50% in real terms because it was very low, and because of China and because other stuff, because of the cycle of the herd in Brazil, like in the West, it was a big supply and then it's tight. But depends on the JBS, we can see this pressure coming. Uh, then we could see Brazil even cheaper than it is right now. The If you compare in dollar terms, it's the beef in the CME, it's the double of the Brazilian.
Interesting. So
So
both
pay
sides are going to
attention
be screaming
to
pretty
pay
soon.
attention to the cattle in the B3 future. It's falling because of the not because in the it's a real thing, but because of the threat.
Mhm. Interesting. What last question, and we'll call it a week, kind of piggybacks on the back of some of the other topics that we've discussed, but looking ahead to new crop to 25, 26. There tends to be a feel in the market that Brazil is just going to continue to expand acres forever. With current margins as they are, and the uncertainty that we're seeing and some of these other things, what are your thoughts as we work into your spring here eventually, and start to talk about soybean planting and first season corn planting? What are you hearing from producers? Are we going to see an increase in acres still, or do you believe we stagnate for a while, plateau?
And it's a very important question. We have 2 points. One is credit. It's
Yeah.
amazing how it getting difficult to get any kind of credit in Brazil. So producers need to be very very responsible in terms of avoiding exposure overall, but they are not. They are keeping carrying the soybean and corn, even with a very expensive interest rate in Brazil. But the point is, a credit to get credit in Brazil, it's not only expensive, but it's very scarce. Then I think it's not for 25, 26, but maybe 26, 27. Then we can see not a drop, a lower acreage, which is not possible because of the debt. They need to keep increasing the production to pay off machines and equipments and the debt overall. So in Brazil, it's good to remember that we don't have any kind of support. Only support is price and production and yields. So there is a part of the growers in Brazil, they are putting their eggs on this chest of increasing the yield uh, to 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 keep in the activity. And the others are, for example, Rio Grande do Sul. They are waiting for the government support anyhow. I don't know, a waiver of their debt or something else. Rio Grande do Sul should be the first to reduce the acreage, maybe for the next year, because they didn't complete the purchase of inputs, and inputs, for example, phosphorus and potash increased, and the soybean flat price didn't. So the point is that this rate of increasing, of course, it's going to be very slower than the last 5 years.
I think it's
That's
important.
the Yeah, that's the point. Credit is it's amazing how it's getting a very difficulty to get because of the not because of the producers only, but because of the input retailers, big ones that file the Chapter 11 in Brazil.
I think it's one of those things where I'll talk to growers, and I think they have this idea that the Brazilian farmer is still making money, significant money, even though they're losing. And I'm like, no, no. I mean, it doesn't make it better, but maybe misery loves company. Everyone, every farmer around the world right now is looking at a compressed margin.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
it's important. This year it was a good year, but not because of the price, because of the yields. The
yeah,
the weather was very friendly
yeah.
for both for soybean and for corn.
All right. Really this time, last question. I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here, but I've seen another person bring up an over 150 million metric ton corn yield based on, or corn production number out of Brazil, total production. Have you changed your opinion at all as the harvest has worked its way closer to half done? Are you team 150 yet, Eduardo, or are you still team 135?
Something is wrong. Something is wrong. Or the production is not that one, or the domestic consumption in Brazil it's much larger than.
Massive, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
massive. Wow.
Because if it's a
Yeah,
150, right, and you're 40% harvested,
yeah.
basically you should have
No
60
pressure.
million metric ton. Like you should be like, and there are corn piles, and you have lots of bags of corn, and corn is worked into the pipeline, but the cash market does not say 150 at this point,
Yeah,
in my
yeah,
opinion.
that's the point. That's the point. And if you remember the last year, oh, USDA is very wrong in terms of consumption in Brazil.
Yeah.
In September of last year, there was report was calling for 82, 83 million tons, and now 93
Right.
million tons.
Yeah.
Yeah, big
Slight
jump.
difference.
Yeah, but I believe it's more than that, 95 million tons. I assume
Mhm.
uh, something is wrong.
It's cash is king. That's all I
Yeah,
say.
yeah. Follow the cash.
It's
Follow the
all
cash.
about, what cash prices are doing, and how easy it is, or how hard it is to tap into grain. So, all right. Well, with that, we're gonna let you get back to your trip and enjoy your time and all of that. I appreciate your insight. We'll post this for everyone to check out, and make sure you guys if those of you who haven't checked out what Eduardo puts out. Agrinvest puts out the best South American news out there. Probably, honestly, and I'm not saying plug your ears, Eduardo, because I don't want to give you too much of a big head, but probably the most comprehensive, best cash grain info anywhere. in my opinion. Like
Oh,
it is good
thank
stuff.
you very much.
And like I said, plug your ears. I didn't want you to hear that. And for a long time, I didn't want to tell people what it was that you were putting out because it is that good. It made me feel like I had an edge, but I feel like I shouldn't gatekeep anymore. It's worth every penny that you spend on it. Because like I said, balance sheets are one thing. Balance sheets are fine, but grain flow and cash is king. And so to be
Yes,
able
yes,
to learn or tap into a resource that is provided by a cash trader, because Agrinvest is, several tens of millions of bushels of grain a year that they're touching. So they're involved in the market. They're not just talking about the market. And I think that's a huge difference. So like I said, kind of not didn't mean to come off as a salesperson in the end, but for real, if you really want to know what's going on in South America, Agrinvest is your go-to. So with that, we'll call it a week. We'll be back next week. One of these days, we'll come up with which day works for you and fits into your travels.
okay.
And we'll go from
Next
there.
week,
So
I'm going to be there in the office,
you
and
are,
then we.
oh, well, look at us. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. With that, then, you guys have a great week. If anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help, and we'll go from there. So have a good one, guys.
See you. Bye
See
bye.
you later.